In this video, we're going to talk about the big picture, the metaverse, NFTs, crypto. How do all these things come together and what does it look like when they do it? In this video, we're going to explore, we're going to create a thesis about what we think about the crypto, metaverse, NFT space as a whole. Because in order for us to really identify areas of value, we first have to understand, well, what do we think of the space? How do we think it's going to unfold? And what is its potential? Because in some sense, the best way to think about it is that as the space grows, each of the projects within it are going to grow, right? And so like a rising tide is going to lift all boats, but it's not going to lift them equally, right? You're going to have some that do extremely well and some that don't do so well, and some that just completely and totally lose. So by evaluating the total opportunity, the total addressable market within the space, then we can talk about which areas have the best opportunity for investment, for alpha, for return on investment, and so on. So without further ado, let's begin. So this is kind of how I think about the space. So first, I got into crypto a few years back, and in the beginning I was kind of doing it mostly as flipping it here and there. And then about a year and a half ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this epiphany that this is something that I need to take very seriously, and that things were going to change very rapidly. And so I went in and I thought to myself, how should I invest in it? And my thought was that I should put in enough money where if it 10x's, it'll be life-changing, but if it goes to zero, that it won't bother me, that I won't wake up and it won't impact my life. And the thing that really pushed me over was that essentially cryptocurrencies are the fastest growing technology. So they're growing 2 times faster than the internet was in its heyday. So that was one of the things that really took me back. The other thing that took me back is that, well, if you think of anything that could grow virally really quickly, and then you compare that to money will always grow faster. It's very social in nature. The reason why dollars are worth anything is because we collectively believe that they are, right? The reason why gold's worth anything is because we collectively believe that gold is worth something. And otherwise, it's just a yellow piece of metal, okay? Or silver or anything else. And then you can go back in time, like go back to the Roman Empire, people were trading salt, okay? Now no one would buy and sell salt because we just don't value it as much. So in essence, what money is, or what a currency is that enough people share the belief that it's valuable, and so they're willing to, transact with you, buy and sell in that currency for things of real value, like items and so on. And so the cool thing is that cryptocurrencies were going super fast, which means people were adopting it and they were believing that there was value in it, and by and large creating value as a result. So that was the first part. The second part, so if you look at internet access, like in developing countries, Africa, some parts of South America, Southeast Asia, and so on, the internet access is poor. People have a hard time going on, okay? There's not that many services for them, but they do finally have smartphones, right? What we're seeing though is that the cost of their internet access is going down, their bandwidth is going up, and at the same time, a lot of people are unbanked. They lived in communities or in areas where it would be too difficult for them to go to the bank. And then on top of it, the currency that they operate in isn't that strong. It's a weak currency. Like if you go to Zimbabwe, for example, the Zimbabwe currencies, you're losing 99% of its value every decade, roughly speaking. So you have like these really big areas of opportunity where you have a large number of people online that are unbanked. You have an even larger number of people that are coming online and are unbanked, and then they don't have a trustable currency. And so that was like another really big convincing point for me. If you think about like why cryptocurrencies are so valuable, it's one word, and that is that it's trust, okay? You can validate a transaction on the blockchain, and you can do it peer-to-peer without needing a third party to validate it. So up until now, Web 2.0 was all about having these large networks of trust, these large organizations which would validate transactions kind of like a bank does. But like, let's say you go to e-commerce and you're trying to have trust within an e-commerce space. How would you do it? Well, look at Amazon. So Amazon, for example, is a large organization. And the reason why we buy from Amazon is because we can go on Amazon, we can count on the experience, we trust that the products are what they say they are, we trust the reviews more or less, we trust that if we're unhappy, we can just return it. So the reason why we go to Amazon is because of trust. With social media, Facebook was the first company, roughly speaking, to actually have people's real names on their social media profile. So you could, when you thought you were talking to your cousin on Facebook, because you were talking to your cousin on Facebook. And so they created trust in that way. And then LinkedIn did it with the professional realm. So these big organizations kind of act as the middle layer of trust between users. And now we're coming into a Web 3.0 where all of this is going to happen on its own. It could be decentralized. And that's really, really exciting. So that was the third thing that kind of got me very excited about it, because it offers so much opportunity. And I could show you what I mean. So first we have this Web 3.0, and it kind of overlaps perfectly with the idea of the metaverse. And so the metaverse is essentially a more embodied version of the internet. You can think of it as more of like a 3D, game that you can kind of play. And if you've ever played with like Decentraland or Sandbox, you kind of already have an idea of what that's like. Now, the problem has been that when you go inside of them, there's not much for you to do, okay? You don't have like a path forward, a goal-oriented path. You don't have enough of a reason to go and spend time. And just ask yourself, like, how much time have you spent in a metaverse today? How about this week, this month, this year? Probably like almost none, right? And the reason is because you don't have a strong enough reason to go. And this is something that the founders of Second Life and Sims have talked about, is that there was not a strong goal-oriented path, and that if someone's life was good, there was no reason for them to go to the simulated world. If you're successful in life and you have all your stuff together and you have good relationships, a good job, and so on, like you're playing all these games in the real world, right? You're finding relationships in the real world. That's a goal-oriented path. You go to work and you achieve your goals. That's a goal-oriented path. You go out for fun and you have fun with your friends, and now you're having pleasure, which is also kind of like a goal-oriented path. You don't have these sort of goal-oriented paths within the metaverse. And for the first time, we're going to start seeing these emerge through NFTs and through communities. So NFTs are, in essence, are going to provide one of these ways to move forward. And the other cool thing about NFTs is that in some sense they symbolize what communities you belong to. So if you're out in the metaverse and you go to a concert, for example, for fun, and you see other people, you might see other people within the same community as you, and kind of like you would in real life go and talk to them, like in the metaverse you'll go and talk to them. And so that's kind of like a really interesting way for you to discover things. That feels very natural to how we do it in real life. Okay, and so one of the things I look for is like, are the things that we're doing online replicating what we're doing in real life, and are they adding value, making it easier in some way or something like that? And if the answer is yes, then I'm very, very interested in it. So in this case, this is kind of the situation. Now we have a goal-oriented path. We have ways of meeting people and then finding out what we have in common with each other. And so that makes the social element more plausible within the metaverse. The other thing that's really exciting for me is finding areas of value within the metaverse that give people a reason to spend an enormous amount of time. And I think the biggest one right now is gaming. For example, Axie Infinity, it's a game. You could earn crypto in this game. So it's a community-owned, player-owned game in which you could earn. It's a P2E model. It's play to earn. So you get paid for hanging out there and earning. Okay, and so that's a very cool model. Okay, and then the things that they do within it are no longer purely symbolically represented. Like if you wanted to, for example, go from point A to point B in some of these games, you would take a taxi. Now someone owns that taxi, and maybe you're spending a few virtual dollars to do it, and they get those virtual dollars, and now all of a sudden there's this transaction that's happening, and values being exchanged. And so this allows us to do a lot of cool and interesting things, like within this metaverse, because now there's a reason for you to interact with it. And so those are like two of the big ones that I'm looking at. That's why I'm interested in the NFTs, and then specifically within the gaming aspect of it. And now Lastly, what we're going to see is an explosion in the metaverse, particularly in the gaming sector, because it's already really huge. It's going to attract a huge number of users that are going to come in and they're going to experiment with these play to earn models, the P2E models. And then I think that more and more what's going to happen is that people are going to find the best communities they can join and become a part of that are going to help them move forward. And then at the end, what we're going to have in the metaverse is basically, the average person might belong to X number of communities. Okay, and then each of these communities, at least the good ones, are going to act like its own citizenry. Okay, in other words, they're going to have a shared set of values and goals. Okay, they're going to have a similar culture. There's going to be like, each community has its own lingo, for example. It's going to have its similar language, and then it's going to have articles and items of value, like the NFTs that exist within this community. And then the other thing that's going to have is they're going to have cryptocurrencies. So, and we already see these with some of the really large NFT communities. First, they started out as an NFT project, then they're building an NFT world or some kind of game within the metaverse, and then they also launch a cryptocurrency. And then they tie the whole thing in together, okay, by having a community of people that is interacting and creating value by playing this sort of game together. And in terms of time frames, it's one of my thesis is that right around March, we might have a blow off top. Another one of my thoughts is that this might be the type of market that's already maturing and that we might just kind of like the stock market over the last 30 years or so. It's like you're consistently on an uptrend. You have dips that come up, 30% more or less. And you get a bunch of them throughout the year, 2, 3, 30% dips. Everyone gets scared when it happens. And then we go back up. But over time, it's just consistently going up. And that you have a super cycle, you don't have boom and bust cycles that we've had in the past. So that's one possibility, okay? And when it comes to my thesis, what I do is I weigh each possibility out. So one is that we have a blow off top around March. Another one is that we have a super cycle. And I think, well, what are the odds of A happening? What are the odds of B happening? And then I literally play those odds.